My name is Kevin Adams. I'm a criminal defense attorney. And what I want to talk to you about today is the concept of standards of review. If you or a loved one are appealing a criminal conviction, okay, then you really need to understand this concept of standards of review. A standard of review is really nothing more than a presumption, okay, and a burden of proof, okay. All throughout the legal system, there are presumptions and there are burdens of proof. For example, the most common one that people are familiar with is at a trial, a defendant is presumed innocent and the state bears the burden of proving every element of the crime beyond a reasonable doubt. However, once a defendant is convicted, all of the presumptions switch, okay? They shift. And when I say they shift, I mean that now the defendant bears the burden of proof and all the presumptions are against the defendant. The appellate courts are going to presume that the trial court made the right decision. Okay, the appellate courts are going to presume that the defense attorney was effective. The appellate courts are going to presume that the prosecutor did not commit prosecutorial misconduct. They're going to presume that the jury made the right decision. And it's up to the defendant or the defendant's attorney on appeal to persuade the appellate court that that's not the case. There are different standards of review depending on what the circumstances are. You know, the most favorable standard of review that deals mainly with legal issues is what they refer to as a de novo standard review. That means that the appellate court is not going to give any deference to the trial court's decisions, and they're going to decide it again like they're deciding for the first time. Okay, that's the most favorable that it gets for a defendant as far as the standard reviews. A very common standard review, typically imposed on any type of evidentiary ruling, is an abuse of discretion standard review. So if it's an issue about whether or not the judge should have allowed or should not have allowed a piece of evidence in, most appellate courts are going to use an abuse of discretion standard review. Abuse of discretion means that the judge's opinion was unreasonable or arbitrary action made without proper consideration of relevant facts and law. Sometimes it's also described as the clearly erroneous conclusion in judgment. It has to be clearly against the logic of facts and the facts before the appellate court is going to reverse that conviction. So when you're doing an appeal, and this is something that happens a lot with defendants and defendants' families, they'll find a statement of the law, they'll look at what happened in the case, and they'll say, hey, that didn't happen in my case, that's an error, therefore my conviction should get reversed. The appellate courts don't look at it like that, okay? You have to find an error of law, and then you have to apply the standard of review. So it's entirely possible that every judge on the appellate court could look at the decision that the lower court judge made and say, I disagree with that decision. If I would have been the trial judge, I would have done something differently. I would have done exactly opposite of what they did, okay? But still not reverse the conviction because the opinion was not unreasonable and arbitrary, made without proper consideration of the relevant facts and law. And I know it sounds crazy, but you could have a scenario where all of the judges disagreed with the opinion, all the judges agreed that the law is that it should have gone the other way, and the judge has still not reversed the conviction because the decision was not an abuse of discretion or does not otherwise meet the standard of review. This may seem wrong, and a lot of people think that it is. A lot of people think that the appellate court should just be concerned with enforcing the rule of law and making sure that the trials were done the way that the law says the trials should be done. But it is the way that it is. And if you don't understand how the system works, then you don't stand any chance of getting the conviction reversed.